Hello everyone, Brachiosaurus227 here, piece of hair. Today I'm going to be talking about, these things. A whole rant on these things in particular. The Dart Zone, Pump Action, Mag-Fed, Half Dart, Pro Springers. Why do we have so many of these? Why do we have so many of this type of blaster? It is starting to get on my nerves. We're not just going to talk about that though, okay? There is a lot more we have to talk about, specifically with just issues I have with Dart Zone being like Hasbro in this specific area. Now, I could make a whole separate rant video about Dart Zone and all their other problems, but specifically what I'm talking about is this problem here. And not this blaster itself, it's a great blaster. And a lot of these blasters I'm going to talk about are great, and they're not bad by any means. But it's the whole idea of them in general, the whole existence of them, basically, and just my issues with them, and specifically with Dart Zone in general when it comes to creativity. People give Hasbro a lot of flack for not being super creative, but Dart Zone isn't much better. Now, they have had some good things, and thankfully it seems that they have some interesting stuff coming out this year, but I'm still skeptical. And I do want to talk about the problems they had in the past in this specific area. Now, there's a lot of different things I could talk about when it comes to Dart Zone, but we're going to cover just the reskins and reshells and the recycling of the same ideas. That's what I'm going to cover today in this rant. So let's get started with the obvious thing, the obvious point of this video, and that would be the question, why are there so many of these things? This style of blaster. And like I said before, the Nexus Pro X, I think, is a fantastic blaster, and I'm not even saying it doesn't have to exist, or that none of these blasters have to exist. But it is starting to become a pattern that's slightly annoying, and there's a reason for it that I've noticed, and it really is annoying. Like, especially if you take a look into why these blasters exist and you analyze the past and how they got to where they are now. There's a reason we have so many of these types of blasters, and it speaks to a bigger problem of Dart Zone in general. But first, let's see exactly what we have. We have, obviously, the Dart Zone Pro, which was like one of the first ones that came out. I believe that's what we call the MK1, or the MK1 might be a separate blaster. I'll put the pictures up there as a difference, but there was that, the MK1 / Dart Zone Pro. Then they came out with the MK1.1, which was basically a slightly updated version of the MK1. Then they came out with the MK 1.2, which was a slightly better version of that. Even then, it still had issues, and they haven't made a 1.3, and I really hope they don't make a 1.3. But even going back to the Nexus Pro, which was basically a cheaper version of the MK, the MK1, and it released on store shelves, $50, had a bunch of options, really cool. Then they released the Max Striker, which is the Target version. Okay, pretty cool, I get it, I understand. And then they just keep releasing more and more Pump Action Pro Springers. You have stuff like the MK4, which is really cool, and it's basically an evolution of all the other stuff that came before it, and it's better. The problem is it's $180. And it took them a long, long time to get a better version of the Nexus Pro. Specifically, it took them about 4 years. And, of course, this was the evolution of that and the improvement. And this blaster is great, okay? They took their time to fix it. It is great. But in between that, we got a bunch of other reskins of the Nexus Pro. There's too many Dart Zone blasters that are this exact style. Now, you have some variation with the Conquest and the Dictator, which is pretty darn cool. And, of course, the Tomcat is technically a variation as well. And, of course, they released the Max Striker 2.0, which is another Pump Action Pro half-dart spring. It's annoying, okay? And it's not necessarily the existence of these blasters that has me upset, but it's the style. They're all the same exact style with little to no changes in it. One thing I liked about the original Max Striker was the fact that it had a pump handle and had something a little bit different to, the original Nexus Pro. It also had some different ergonomics and a little bit of a better setup, in my opinion. And I'll say the new Max Striker did that too, but not to a really big extent. The only real change they made was that it was drum compatible, which is cool, but the drum itself doesn't even work that well in the first place. So they'll probably end up making a more refined version of the Max Striker 2.0. How much you want to bet that's going to happen? And it just keeps going on and going on and going on. We get the same stuff and little to no innovation or uniqueness. At least the Dictator and Conquest had some uniqueness. Yeah, they're Pump Action Pro half-dart springers, but they had a different loading mech. They were a little bit different in design. They had some use. And as much as I don't really like the idea of the Tomcat, or I don't think it was executed that well, it is still something new and different. even going on to something like the Mark IV, which is really cool, but it's basically an improvement of what came before. The Mark I, the Mark 1.1, the Mark 1.2, all of those had issues, and they took them 3 generations and they didn't even fix it. And you could argue that the Mark IV isn't even a continuation of that. It's a whole separate blaster because it's more based on the Worker Swift. But it's still a pump action, mag fed, half dart Springer. But at least it has a more unique shell. But $180 is not justifiable. And then you see reskins of these blasters here, 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 and here. The Mark IV is now having a Nitro Shot reskin. It's the same price. I think it's even a little more expensive. Why? Why are we getting this? We don't need this. I'm sorry. We don't need a Nitro Shot version of the Mark IV. We need a new blaster, some better things. And I also want to say the new Mark IV doesn't have any changes. It's the same blaster with a new shell. I mean, it's annoying. But at the end of the day, I just think that we need more originality in Dart Zone. I'm not saying to get rid of the pump action mag fed pro Springer thing. That would be stupid to say because that's a format that could be applied to many different things. But the problem is Dart Zone isn't applying that format to many different things. They're applying it to the same structure, the same set of blaster. And it's really annoying to the point where I want to see better stuff Dart Zone. And I feel like one of the only reasons we're getting a bunch of this style of blaster is because they're just trying to fix previous designs, issues with previous designs. Instead of making something new or adding new things, they're just trying to build upon the mistakes they made in the past or try to fix the same things. I'm not saying they shouldn't fix the same issues they had in the past, but at least do something new and interesting. I will say, at least the Nexus Pro X, it has Slamfire. This is, I know I'm holding this blaster, but this is like one of the few I think was actually justified in having a re-release. They should have dropped the Mark 1.1 and 1.2. That shouldn't even happen. I really don't think the Mark IV was very necessary, but that's just my personal opinion. And especially the Max Striker 2.0. I don't think that was necessary either. But it's really annoying to see the same style blasters, and I want to see more stuff like the Dictator or the Conquest. I want to see more interesting things. Give us more pump action stuff with the traditional pump action. Like, instead of the grip like this, the vertical grip, I want to see more horizontal grips. Let's see lever action. Where's lever action? I want something that's a little more unique instead of just the traditional stuff. And it is annoying to continue to see this stuff. I want to see more bolt action. Why was the Jurassic Pro the only bolt action pro blaster from Dart Zone we've gotten? Where's more blasters like the Jurassic Pro? Why didn't they improve upon that design instead of improving upon other things that ended up not fixing itself anyway? I want to see more originality with this style of blaster. You could apply it to so many different things, but we get the same stuff over and over again. It is starting to annoy me. That's not saying Dart Zone doesn't have originality, but I'm starting to get annoyed that we don't see more of it than we already do. It's getting annoying. The Maxim Pro, for instance, despite all the other issues it has, one thing that really annoys me about it is that it's such a basic blaster that doesn't do too much besides the fact that, it has an XT30 connector, which is cool, but it doesn't do anything else interesting. It doesn't do anything new or innovative. The Venom Pro does something new and innovative with the way it's designed. I think it does a lot of things new. It's very fresh and interesting, but a lot of Dart Zone blasters I've seen don't do new things, and it's starting to get annoying. Now, hopefully this year there's some new stuff coming out. The Primus, that new pistol looks pretty interesting. The Cricket's pretty interesting. There's some stuff. Obviously, some of those are reshells, but there's interesting things being done with those blasters. So I hope to see more stuff like that in the future. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this rant of mine. It's not like a super long rant. I hope you kind of understood what I'm saying. I would like to see more creativity from Dart Zone, and there will be another Dart Zone rant coming up eventually, but I don't know when that's going to be because it's going to be talking about all the problems with Dart Zone, not just this one little thing. But I thought I wanted to cover this because it's been annoying me lately. So yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
My junk drawer, my junk drawer. So many things I don't know what they're for, but I won't let it go. No, I will add more useless little things to my junk drawer.